The Ghost Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Zephyrian territory like ancient demons returning from the dead. Admiral Vextar was inspecting his forces near the Rigel system when his sensors detected massive energy signatures appearing throughout the sector. The readings made no sense because they showed human vessels larger and more heavily armed than anything in the galactic databases. Captain Sam Mitchell brought the Iron Wolf out of hyperspace first and immediately began broadcasting on all Zephyrian military frequencies. The message was simple and delivered in the flat, emotionless tone that veteran soldiers used when preparing to kill. This is Captain Mitchell of the Earth battleship Iron Wolf. You attacked our medical ship and murdered wounded civilians. Prepare to face the consequences. Admiral Vexatar stared at his tactical displays, showing readings that seemed impossible. The human battleship was over 1 kilometer long and carried energy signatures that exceeded anything in the Zephyrian fleet. Weapon ports covered every surface of the angular hull, while massive missile bays prepared to launch ordnance designed for planetary bombardment. This was not the type of vessel that peaceful humans were supposed to possess. Commander Rachel Torres led her destroyer squadron in a sweeping attack against the Zephyrian outer perimeter. The Reaper's Edge and her sister ships moved through space like hunting predators, while their AI systems analyzed enemy formations. Quantum phase torpedoes launched from concealed tubes and passed through Zephyrian shields as if they did not exist before detonating inside enemy hulls. The first Zephyrian destroyer died in seconds as quantum explosions tore through its internal structure. The crew had no time to send distress signals before their ship disintegrated into glowing particles. Rachel's tactical display showed 12 more enemy vessels in her sector, and her AI recommended attack patterns that would eliminate all of them within 30 minutes. All destroyers, this is Reaper Leader, Rachel transmitted to her squadron. Execute Hunt Pattern Alpha and eliminate all enemy contacts. Show them what human warships are designed to do. Her ships spread out across the battlefield and began systematically destroying Zephyrian forces with weapons that violated every galactic convention on civilized warfare. Admiral Vextar tried to rally his fleet but found himself facing enemies that fought unlike anyone he had encountered before. Human ships used tactics that seemed designed for total annihilation rather than tactical victory. They targeted life support systems and command centers while their weapons punched through Zephyrian armor like it was made of paper. The Iron Wolf engaged 3 Zephyrian heavy cruisers simultaneously and demonstrated the overwhelming superiority of human military engineering. Captain Mitchell's weapon systems tore through enemy shields, while his armor absorbed their return fire without significant damage. The engagement lasted 8 minutes before all 3 alien vessels were reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Target their flagship, Sam ordered while his weapons officer prepared the ship's main battery. I want Admiral Vextar to understand exactly what happens when you attack human civilians. Massive particle beams reached across space to strike the Zephyrian command ship, while nuclear missiles followed up with planet-killing warheads that cracked the enemy vessel in half. Admiral Vextar found himself trapped on a dying ship, while human forces systematically destroyed his entire fleet. Emergency systems failed as quantum fires burned through his vessel's superstructure, and he realized that humanity possessed military capabilities that the galaxy had never suspected. These were not the peaceful explorers that Zephyrian intelligence had described. The climax of the battle came when Admiral Ben Carter brought the Earth's wrath into weapons range of the main Zephyrian battle group. The massive dreadnought was larger than some space stations and carried enough firepower to level continents. Carter had fought in every major engagement of the colonial wars, and he understood exactly how to break enemy morale completely. This is Admiral Carter of the Earth Defense Forces. He broadcast on all frequencies while his ship's weapon systems powered up. You attacked our medical personnel and murdered wounded refugees in violation of every law of civilized warfare. We are here to collect payment for those crimes with interest. The Earth's wrath opened fire with every weapon system simultaneously. Nuclear missiles streaked across space while kinetic projectiles accelerated to near light speed and quantum. Disruption torpedoes tore holes in reality itself. The demonstration of firepower was designed to show the galaxy exactly what human military forces could accomplish when they stopped holding back. Admiral Vextar's flagship disintegrated under the combined fire of weapons that should not have existed. The Zephyrian admiral died knowing that his attack on the Hope's Light had awakened something terrible that would haunt his empire for generations. The human response was not diplomatic protest or economic sanctions, but total warfare conducted by experts in the art of destruction. The battle lasted 6 hours and ended with the complete annihilation of Zephyrian forces in the sector. Human ships systematically hunted down every enemy vessel, while their adaptive AI systems learned Zephyrian tactics and developed countermeasures. By the end of the engagement, the aliens had no secrets left and no hope of victory. Admiral Ryan broadcast a message across all galactic communication networks while rescue ships searched for Zephyrian survivors. This is Admiral Ryan of the Earth Defense Forces. We are transmitting complete sensor records of the unprovoked attack on our medical ship Hope's Light. The Zephyrian Empire murdered medical personnel and wounded refugees in violation of galactic law. The transmission included Amy Foster's testimony and sensor data from the attack showing clear images of Zephyrian forces targeting escape pods carrying wounded civilians. The evidence was undeniable, and the galaxy watched in horror as the full extent of Zephyrian war crimes became public knowledge. The Zephyrian Empire has 72 hours to surrender unconditionally and provide reparations for their crimes. Admiral Ryan continued, while images of the Ghost Fleet filled communication screens across civilized space. Any further attacks on human vessels will result in the complete destruction of all Zephyrian military forces and the bombardment of their homeworlds. Emperor Zex Kul of the Zephyrian Empire received the human ultimatum while watching sensor recordings of his fleet's destruction. The vessels that had annihilated his forces carried weapons that his scientists claimed were impossible to build. Human military technology was decades ahead of anything the galaxy possessed, and their willingness to use it was absolutely terrifying. The Emperor issued a formal surrender within 24 hours along with complete reparations for the destroyed medical ship. Zephyrian forces withdrew from all disputed territories while their government published official apologies for the attack on humanitarian personnel. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for years collapsed overnight when faced with humanity's true military power. Amy Foster stood on the bridge of Admiral Ryan's command ship and watched Zephyrian leaders signing surrender documents. The friends she had lost aboard the Hope's Light were finally avenged, and the galaxy now understood that attacking human civilians carried a terrible price. Earth had tried peace, but when peace failed, they still remembered how to make war. Ghost Fleet remained on patrol along human space borders while the galaxy adjusted to new realities. Other aggressive empires quietly canceled their expansion plans, and several alien races requested formal treaties with Earth. The age of human pacifism was over, and a new chapter began where Earth's mercy came backed by overwhelming force. Admiral Ryan made her final log entry while the fleet prepared to return home. Operation Ghost Fleet is complete, and Zephyrian forces have been neutralized. the galaxy has been reminded that human peacefulness is a choice, not a weakness. We tried diplomacy, but when enemies attack our medical personnel, we respond with total warfare. Let this be a lesson to anyone who mistakes our compassion for vulnerability. In the asteroid fields beyond Neptune, ancient shipyards came alive for the first time in 50 years. Automated systems that had waited patiently in the cold darkness began their programmed sequences while fusion reactors powered up with the rumble of barely contained stars. The Ghost Fleet was waking up, and across the solar system, retired warriors answered the call to return to service. Captain Sam Mitchell received his recall orders while fishing on a lake in Montana. He had commanded the battleship Iron Wolf during the final battles of the colonial wars before taking early retirement to forget the things he had seen and done. The message from Earth Command was brief and used code words he hoped never to hear again. The galaxy needed killers, and Sam Mitchell was very good at killing. The Iron Wolf floated in a hidden construction bay carved from a hollow asteroid. The massive battleship stretched 1,200 meters from bow to stern and bristled with weapon systems that violated every galactic treaty on civilized warfare. Her hull plating was designed to absorb energy weapons, while her armor could stop kinetic projectiles traveling at significant fractions of light speed. Sam arrived at the shipyard 3 days after receiving his orders and found his old crew already aboard running system checks. Chief Engineer Lisa Park had left her teaching job at the Colonial Academy, while Weapons Officer Dave Chen abandoned his quiet retirement on Mars. They were all older now, with gray hair and lines on their faces, but their hands still remembered how to operate the most dangerous warship humanity had ever built. "Welcome back, Captain," Lisa reported, while the Iron Wolf's fusion reactors reached full power for the first time since the end of the war. "All systems are green, and we're ready for combat operations. The crew is reporting 90% efficiency, which is better than we ever managed during active service." Sam smiled grimly as he took his place in the command chair that fit his body like it was made for him. Meanwhile, in the rings of Saturn, another ghost was stirring to life. The destroyer. Reaper's Edge had been designed for one mission only: hunting and killing enemy ships with maximum efficiency. Commander Rachel Torres left her job at the Diplomatic Corps to take command of the vessel that had made her famous during the siege of Proxima Station. The Reaper's Edge belonged to a class of ships that earned humanity's reputation as the most dangerous fighters in the galaxy. Each destroyer carried adaptive artificial intelligence systems that learned enemy tactics during battle and quantum phase torpedoes that could pass through any known shield technology. The ship looked like a giant blade covered in weapon ports and built for slicing through enemy formations. Rachel found her old crew waiting in the destroyer's cramped combat bridge. Navigation Officer Kevin Liu had been running cargo ships for the past 20 years, while Tactical Officer Nancy Foster commanded a mining platform in the outer system. They dropped everything when the recall orders arrived because they knew what those orders meant. Humanity was going to war, and their specialized skills would be needed. "Status report," Rachel ordered, while settling into the commander's chair. "All weapon systems operational and AI cores are running at full efficiency. Our torpedo bays are loaded with quantum phase warheads and kinetic penetrators. The ship is ready to hunt," Nancy reported, while her tactical displays showed weapon readiness across all systems. The crown jewel of the Ghost Fleet was awakening in a massive facility hidden inside a captured comet. The dreadnought Earth's Wrath had been humanity's answer to every alien superweapon during the colonial wars. The vessel was over 2 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to level continents or crack planets if necessary. Admiral Ben Carter came out of retirement to command this monster one final time. Earth's wrath represented everything the galaxy feared about human warfare. The ship carried nuclear missiles with planet-killing yields quantum disruption devices that could tear holes in space-time and kinetic bombardment systems designed to rain death from orbit. The vessel had ended 3 separate wars just by appearing in enemy systems and demanding surrender. Admiral Carter walked through corridors he had not seen for decades while his old crew prepared the dreadnought for combat. These men and women had served with him during humanity's darkest period when survival required doing terrible things to terrible enemies. They understood that war was not a game or diplomatic tool, but a method for completely destroying anything that threatened human civilization. "Admiral, the ship is fully operational," reported Captain Diane Watson, his executive officer, who had left her position as head of Colonial Defense Academy. "All weapon systems are online and we have full crews at every station. Our missile bays are loaded with enhanced nuclear warheads, and our kinetic bombardment platforms are ready for planetary assault operations." The Ghost Fleet assembled in deep space beyond Pluto, where massive supply ships waited with ammunition and provisions. Hundreds of vessels, ranging from small destroyers to massive dreadnoughts, formed up in battle formations that had not been seen since the end of the colonial wars. Each ship carried weapons and tactics that the peaceful galactic community had forgotten existed. Admiral Ryan arrived aboard her command ship to review the fleet that would carry out Operation Ghost Fleet. She found veterans who had aged gracefully in retirement but still remembered how to operate the most sophisticated killing machines ever built by human hands. These were the people who won the colonial wars through superior firepower and tactical brutality. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Ryan addressed the fleet commanders through secure communication channels, "the Zephyrian Empire has made the mistake of attacking human medical personnel and murdering wounded refugees. They believe humans are weak because we chose peace over conquest. We are going to correct their misunderstanding permanently." Intelligence reports indicated that Zephyrian forces were advancing toward human space, confident that their attack on the Hope's Light had demonstrated human weakness. Enemy admirals expected diplomatic protests and economic sanctions in response to their war crimes. They had no idea that humanity maintained a secret fleet designed for total warfare. The Ghost Fleet began its journey toward Zephyrian space, with Captain Mitchell's Iron Wolf leading the heavy battle line. Commander Torres took her destroyer, squadron ahead to scout enemy positions, while Admiral Carter's Earth's Wrath anchored the formation with enough firepower to sterilize star systems. They moved through hyperspace like ancient nightmares returning to haunt the galaxy. Each ship carried specialized equipment developed during humanity's most violent period. Quantum phase torpedoes that could penetrate any shield-adaptive AI systems that learned to counter enemy tactics, and kinetic weapons that struck with the force of asteroid impacts. The galaxy had forgotten these technologies existed because humans agreed to never use them again. The crews were mostly veterans of the colonial wars who understood what total warfare meant. They had fought against human enemies who used every dirty trick and forbidden weapon available, which taught them to be equally ruthless in response. These were people who knew how to win wars by making the cost of resistance too high for enemies to bear. Amy Foster joined the fleet aboard Admiral Ryan's command ship, where her testimony would help coordinate their response to Zephyrian aggression. She watched the Ghost Fleet moving through space, and felt satisfaction knowing that her murdered friends would receive justice. The Zephyrians had awakened something that should have stayed sleeping. As the fleet approached the edge of Zephyrian, Space Admiral Ryan sent a final message to Earth Command. "Ghost Fleet is operational and proceeding to target." The enemy wanted to test human resolve, and we are going to give them a very thorough examination. They attacked our medical personnel, and now they will learn what happens when Earth goes to war. The human patrol ship Lucky Strike found Amy Foster's escape pod drifting at the edge of the Kepler zone 3 days after the attack. Her life support had failed 12 hours earlier, but the emergency stasis system kept her alive long enough for rescue. When the medical team revived her in the ship's sick bay, the first thing she asked for was the data recorder that contained proof of what the Zephyrians had done. Captain Bill Murphy of the Lucky Strike read Amy's initial report and immediately changed course for Earth. The evidence she carried was too important to trust to normal communication channels, and the story she told was almost impossible to believe. A deliberate attack on a medical ship, followed by the systematic murder of wounded refugees, violated every law of civilized warfare. The galaxy had not seen such brutality in over 200 years. Amy spent the journey to Earth writing detailed reports about everything she witnessed. She described how Admiral Vextar refused to recognize their medical status and declared all humans to be enemies of the Empire. She documented the unprovoked attack on the Hope's Light and the deliberate targeting of escape pods carrying wounded civilians. Her testimony would serve as evidence in whatever came next. The Lucky Strike reached Earth orbit after 6 days of maximum acceleration, and Amy was immediately transferred to Central Command. Admiral Kate Ryan, head of Earth Defense Forces, reviewed the sensor data while Amy gave her testimony to a room full of senior officers. The recording showed clear images of Zephyrian destroyers firing on a clearly marked hospital ship and hunting down survivors in space. Admiral Ryan had served in the colonial wars 40 years earlier when humanity fought brutal conflicts among the outer colonies. She understood warfare in all its forms, but what she saw in Amy's recording went beyond military necessity into pure evil. The Zephyrians had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, and they would have to face the consequences. President John Hayes convened an emergency session of the Human Colonial Council within hours of receiving Admiral Ryan's report. Representatives from every human colony attended the meeting by secure transmission, while Amy Foster presented her evidence to the assembled leaders. The images of children dying in escape pods brought tears to many eyes and rage to many more. Intelligence. Officer Maria Santos provided additional context about Zephyrian military movements over the past month. Enemy forces had been massing near human space and conducting aggressive patrols along neutral borders. The attack on the Hope's Light appeared to be a test of human resolve and a warning of what would happen to any human vessels they encountered. "They want to see if we'll fight back," Maria explained while displaying tactical maps of Zephyrian fleet positions. "Intelligence suggests they plan to attack our outer colonies within the next 30 days. They think humans are weak because we've focused on exploration and medicine instead of building warships." President Hayes listened to the reports with growing anger. He had spent his entire political career promoting peace and cooperation with alien species. Earth had deliberately limited its military forces and focused on humanitarian missions to prove that humans could be trusted neighbors in the galaxy. The Zephyrians had repaid that trust by murdering medical personnel and refugees. Admiral Ryan requested a private meeting with the president after the main session ended. She led him to a secure briefing room deep underground, where classified files waited on a holographic display. The Admiral activated security protocols that sealed the room from all outside monitoring before beginning her presentation. "Mr. President, there are things about Earth's defensive capabilities that even you don't know. Admiral Ryan said, while bringing up files marked with the highest security classifications. When we signed the Galactic Peace Accords 50 years ago, we publicly decommissioned our military fleet. The galaxy thinks we destroyed those ships, but we actually moved them to hidden storage facilities. The holographic display showed massive shipyards hidden in asteroid fields beyond Neptune. Automated systems maintained hundreds of warships in perfect condition, while skeleton crews kept their systems updated with the latest technology. Earth had secretly preserved its entire military fleet from the colonial wars, including vessels, designed for one purpose only. These ships were built during humanity's darkest period, Admiral Ryan continued, while images of massive battleships appeared in the air. They don't follow galactic conventions on warfare because they were designed before those conventions existed. Every weapon system violates multiple peace treaties, and every tactical doctrine assumes total warfare with no mercy for enemies. President Hayes stared at the images of warships he never knew existed. The vessels looked different from modern galactic designs, with angular hulls covered in weapon ports and armor plating. They had been built by a human civilization that knew only war and had learned to excel at destroying its enemies completely. "How many ships are we talking about?" the president asked while Admiral Ryan brought up fleet rosters. 843 vessels of various classes, including 12 dreadnought battleships. Each ship carries weapons that the galactic community banned as too inhumane for civilized warfare. Nuclear missiles, quantum disruption torpedoes, and kinetic bombardment systems that can crack planets. The Admiral explained that Earth had maintained these ships as an insurance policy against exactly this kind of situation. The galaxy assumed humans were peaceful because they chose to be, not because they had to be. When diplomacy failed and enemies threatened human civilians, the gloves would come off, and the galaxy would remember why humanity was once feared across the stars. "We called it Operation Ghost Fleet," Admiral Ryan said, while displaying activation codes for the hidden shipyards. "Every vessel can be fully operational within 72 hours and crewed by recalled veterans from the colonial wars. Most of the original crews are still alive, and many have been waiting for this moment." President Hayes understood the implications of what Admiral Ryan was proposing. Activating the Ghost Fleet would announce to the galaxy that peaceful humanity was a choice, not a weakness. The Zephyrians had attacked medical personnel and murdered refugees, believing humans would respond with diplomatic protests and economic sanctions. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. "Do it!" the president ordered while Admiral Ryan prepared the activation sequences. "Bring our ships home and make sure the Zephyrians understand what happens when you attack human civilians." The Admiral smiled for the first time in days as she entered the codes that would awaken Earth's sleeping dragons. Across the solar system, automated facilities began their work. Hidden shipyards powered up their construction bays while recall orders went out to thousands of retired military personnel. The Ghost Fleet that had slept for 50 years was coming back to life, and it would remind the galaxy that humans had not forgotten how to make war. Admiral Ryan made one final entry in her log before leaving the briefing room. "The Zephyrian Empire has awakened something that should have stayed asleep. God help them all when Earth goes to war." She sealed the file with maximum security encryption, knowing that future historians would need to understand what happened next. Amy Foster was assigned to the newly formed Ghost Fleet Command, where her testimony would help plan the coming operations. She had witnessed the murder of her friends and colleagues, and she would be there when humanity delivered justice for their deaths. The galaxy was about to learn that attacking human medical ships was the worst mistake the Zephyrian Empire could have made. The Zephyrian warships moved closer to the Hope's Light, while Captain Lisa Brooks tried to establish communication with their commander. Amy Foster worked frantically at her station, sending medical identification codes and humanitarian protection signals, but the alien vessels continued their approach without responding. Lisa could see the weapon ports on the lead destroyer glowing with charged energy, and her hands gripped the armrests of her command chair. Still no response from the Zephyrian fleet, Amy reported while sweat beaded on her forehead. Security Chief Alex Stone stood behind his tactical station, watching the enemy ships with growing concern. The destroyers had arranged themselves in a perfect attack formation that would let them fire on the medical ship from multiple angles. Alex had seen this pattern before during his military service, and he knew what it meant. "Captain, they're preparing to open fire," Alex said quietly, so the rest of the bridge crew wouldn't panic. "We need to launch all shuttles immediately and get our people off this ship." Lisa looked at the tactical display showing 12 enemy warships surrounding her hospital vessel. The Hope's Light had shields designed to protect against space debris and radiation, but they would never stop military-grade weapons. Dr. Jake Martinez called from the medical bay to report they still had over 300 patients aboard, including dozens of children who couldn't be moved safely. Many of the refugees were in critical condition, and removing them from life support would kill them just as surely as enemy weapons. Lisa faced an impossible choice between abandoning helpless patients or risking everyone's lives by staying. Amy suddenly received an incoming transmission from the lead Zephyrian destroyer. The alien commander appeared on the main screen with reptilian features and cold yellow eyes that showed no emotion. Admiral Vexatar wore the dark uniform of the Zephyrian military and spoke in perfect human language with a voice like grinding metal. "Human vessel, you are operating illegally in Zephyrian space," the alien commander declared without any diplomatic greeting. "Your interference with our military operations constitutes an act of war against the Empire. You have 5 minutes to surrender your ship and prepare to be boarded." Lisa stood up from her command chair and tried to keep her voice steady. "Admiral Vextar, this is Captain Lisa Brooks of the medical vessel Hope's Light. We are operating under Galactic Humanitarian law and treating wounded civilians. We request safe passage to continue our medical mission." The Zephyrian admiral's lips pulled back to reveal sharp teeth in what might have been a smile. "There are no civilians in this sector, only enemies of the Empire. Your medical aid to rebel forces makes you combatants, and you will be treated as such. You have 4 minutes to comply." Alex Stone moved closer to Lisa and spoke in a low voice. "Captain, he's not going to let us leave. We need to evacuate the ship right now while we still can." Lisa looked at the tactical display and realized they were completely surrounded with no chance of escape. The nearest human patrol was 6 hours away, and they didn't have 6 minutes. Dr. Martinez arrived on the bridge looking desperate. "Captain, I need at least 2 hours to stabilize our critical patients for transport. Most of them will die if we move them now." Lisa felt the weight of command crushing down on her shoulders as she realized there was no good choice available. Save some and let others die, or try to save everyone and lose them all. "Amy, transmit our complete medical logs to Earth Command," Lisa ordered, while the countdown timer showed 3 minutes remaining. "Include all sensor data about this encounter, and make sure they know we were operating under humanitarian protocols." Amy's fingers flew over her controls as she compressed years of medical records into a single transmission burst. The Zephyrian admiral appeared on screen again with his countdown timer showing 1 minute. "Your time has expired, human. Prepare to face the consequences of defying the Empire." The transmission ended, and weapon signatures appeared on all 12 enemy ships as they prepared to fire. "All hands abandon ship," Lisa announced over the comm system, while Alex coordinated the evacuation. Medical shuttles launched, carrying as many patients as possible, while crew members helped load wounded refugees into escape pods. Dr. Martinez refused to leave the medical bay, where he continued treating patients who couldn't be moved. The first Zephyrian volley struck the Hope's light with devastating force. Plasma beams burned through the hull plating, while kinetic rounds punched holes in the ship's superstructure. The medical bays took direct hits, and explosions ripped through sections where patients lay helpless in their beds. Lisa felt the deck shake under her feet as systems failed throughout the ship. Amy managed to launch her data transmission just before the communications array exploded in a shower of sparks. The message contained complete sensor records of the unprovoked attack on a clearly marked hospital ship, along with medical logs proving their humanitarian mission. If any human authorities received the transmission, they would know exactly what happened here. Emergency power kicked in as the main reactors went offline, but life support was failing rapidly. Alex reported massive hull breaches in the medical sections, while fires spread through the corridor systems. The Hope's light was dying and taking hundreds of innocent people with her. Lisa refused to abandon her post while crew members were still aboard. Dr. Martinez continued working in the medical bay, trying to save patients, even as the ship broke apart around him. 20 medical staff volunteered to stay behind and help with the evacuation, while enemy fire continued to tear their vessel apart. The second Zephyrian attack wave targeted the escaping shuttles and pods. Lisa watched in horror as plasma beams reached out to destroy small craft carrying wounded refugees. The aliens showed no mercy as they systematically hunted down survivors floating helplessly in space. Children and elderly refugees died in the cold vacuum while their killers celebrated another victory. Navigator Dan Cooper managed to launch 3 more escape pods before an explosion threw him across the bridge. Alex carried the injured officer toward the remaining evacuation craft, while Lisa made her final log entry. She recorded her testimony about the deliberate attack on a medical vessel and the murder of wounded civilians in escape pods. Dr. Martinez called over the failing comm system to report he had stabilized 12 more patients for transport. An explosion cut off his transmission, and Lisa never heard from him again. The medical bay section broke away from the main hull and tumbled into space with all hands aboard, including the doctor who refused to abandon his patients. The Hope's light finally broke apart after 30 minutes of continuous bombardment. Lisa found herself in an escape pod with 5 other survivors watching their ship burn in the distance. Emergency beacons activated automatically, but she knew no rescue would come in time. The Zephyrian fleet would make sure no witnesses survived. To tell what really happened, Amy Foster floated in another pod nearby, still clutching the data recorder containing evidence of the attack. Her pod's communication system was damaged, but the memory core remained intact, with full sensor logs of the unprovoked assault. She watched enemy destroyers hunting down other survivors and realized she might be humanity's only hope for justice. The Zephyrian ships spent 2 more hours destroying every piece of debris larger than a person. They wanted no evidence of the medical ship or the refugees it carried. Admiral Vextar broadcast a message claiming they had destroyed a human spy vessel operating illegally in Empire space. The official record would show a legitimate military action against enemy combatants. Lisa's pod lost power as enemy fire found its mark. Her last thought was about the 47 crew members who died trying to save innocent lives. The Hope's Light and everyone aboard her became another casualty in the Zephyrian Empire's expansion, but their sacrifice would not be forgotten if even one person survived to tell their story. Amy Foster's pod drifted toward the edge of the system, while Zephyrian forces completed their grim work. Her emergency beacon was silent and her life support failing, but the data recorder still functioned. Inside its memory banks lay proof of the worst war crime the galaxy had seen in centuries, and evidence that would change everything between humanity and the stars. Captain Lisa Brooks stood on the bridge of the medical ship Hope's Light and watched the stars through the main viewport. 3 years she had been out here in the Kepler zone, bringing help to people who needed it most. The ship moved slowly through, space-carrying doctors and nurses and medical supplies to refugee camps scattered across this part of the galaxy. Lisa felt proud of what her crew accomplished every day, but she also knew how dangerous their work had become. The Kepler zone sat between 3 different alien empires, and refugees came here when war broke out in their home systems. Most of them arrived with nothing but the clothes on their backs and terrible injuries from whatever fighting they had escaped. Lisa's medical ship was one of only 5 human vessels allowed to operate in neutral space, and they treated anyone who needed help regardless of what species they belonged to. Dr. Jake Martinez walked onto the bridge carrying a data pad and looking tired. He had been working for 18 hours straight in the medical bays treating wounded children from the Altarian colony ships that arrived yesterday. The Zephyrian Empire had attacked their homeworld without warning, and thousands of families fled in anything that could fly. Many of the children had burns from plasma weapons, and Jake worked through the night to save as many as he could. "How are our patients doing?" Lisa asked, while Jake sat down in the chair next to her command station. The doctor rubbed his eyes and checked his data pad before answering. "We saved most of them, but we lost 3 during the night. 2 adults and 1 child who was too badly hurt when they brought him in. The families are holding funeral services in Cargo Bay 2 this afternoon." Lisa nodded and felt the familiar weight of command settle on her shoulders. Every life they saved mattered, but every life they lost hurt just as much. She looked around the bridge at her crew working at their stations. Communications Officer Amy Foster monitored refugee distress calls, while Navigator Dan Cooper plotted their next course to a mining colony that reported sick workers. Security Chief Alex Stone checked their defensive systems, even though medical ships were supposed to be protected by galactic law. The Hope's Light stretched 800 meters from bow to stern, and most of that space was filled with medical equipment. The ship had 20 operating rooms and could hold up to 500 patients at one time. The crew quarters were small and cramped because every available space went to helping the injured. Lisa's own cabin was barely large enough for a bed and desk, but she spent most of her time on the bridge anyway. Amy Foster suddenly straightened at her communication station and pressed her earpiece closer. Her face went pale as she listened to something coming through her equipment. "Captain," she called out, "I'm picking up multiple distress signals from the Gamma sector. It sounds like the Zephyrian fleet is attacking civilian transports trying to escape the Rigel system." Lisa felt her stomach tighten. The Zephyrian Empire had been expanding aggressively for the past 2 years, and they showed no mercy to anyone who got in their way. Their military forces attacked first and asked questions later. The Empire claimed they were bringing order to the galaxy, but Lisa had seen too many of their victims to believe that lie. "How many ships are in distress?" Lisa asked while Amy worked to clean up the signals. The communications officer listened for several more minutes before answering. At least 40 civilian vessels with thousands of refugees aboard. They're requesting immediate medical assistance and safe passage to neutral space. Dr. Martinez stood up and looked at Lisa with determined eyes. We have to help them. We can take at least 200 more patients if we convert some of the cargo bays into temporary medical facilities. Lisa knew he was right, but she also knew how dangerous it would be to enter the Gamma sector while Zephyrian forces were active in the area. Security Chief Alex Stone walked over to join their conversation. He was a former military officer who had served in the colonial wars before joining the medical service. Captain, I need to advise against entering the Gamma sector. Our long-range sensors are detecting at least 12 Zephyrian destroyers in that area, and they've been firing on anything that moves. Medical ships are supposed to be protected, but the Zephyrians don't always follow galactic law. Lisa understood Alex's concerns, but she also remembered why she became a medical officer in the first place. Her older brother died in a refugee camp when she was 15 because no medical help could reach them in time. She joined the medical service to make sure that never happened to anyone else if she could prevent it. Plot a course for the Gamma sector, Lisa ordered while Alex shook his head. Amy, transmit our medical status and humanitarian mission codes on all frequencies. Make sure everyone knows we're a hospital ship operating under galactic protection. Protocols. The Hope's light changed course and accelerated toward the distress signals. Dr. Martinez went back to the medical bays to prepare for incoming casualties, while Alex checked their shield generators and made sure the medical symbols on their hull were clearly visible. Amy kept broadcasting their peaceful intentions, but her hands shook slightly as she worked. Navigator Dan Cooper reported their estimated arrival time at 6 hours. Lisa ordered the crew to prepare for a major medical operation and tried not to think about what Alex had said about Zephyrian forces in the area. Medical ships had been attacked before despite international law, but it usually happened by accident during large battles. No military force had ever deliberately targeted a clearly marked hospital ship. 3 hours into their journey, Amy picked up new communications from the refugee ships. The Zephyrian attacks had stopped, but many of the civilian vessels were badly damaged and losing life support. Medical emergencies were reported on every ship, and at least 8 vessels had lost their engines completely. Lisa ordered maximum speed while Dr. Martinez assembled surgical teams. The Hope's light reached the edge of the Gamma sector and immediately encountered dozens of damaged refugee ships drifting in space. Lisa could see plasma burns on their hulls and debris fields from ships that had been completely destroyed. Her crew worked quickly to begin rescue operations, while medical shuttles launched to bring back the most seriously injured refugees. Dr. Martinez reported over the comm system that they were receiving patients faster than they could treat them. The medical bays filled up and they had to start using cargo areas as emergency treatment centers. Lisa watched through the viewport as her crew worked to save lives while refugees floated in damaged ships around them. Amy Foster suddenly called out from her station with alarm in her voice. Captain, I'm detecting multiple ships approaching from the inner system. Configuration matches Zephyrian destroyers and they're moving fast. Lisa felt her blood turn cold as she realized they might be trapped with nowhere to run while carrying hundreds of wounded refugees. The Zephyrian fleet emerged from behind a large asteroid, and Lisa counted 12 warships arranged in attack formation. The lead destroyer was twice the size of her medical ship and bristled with weapons designed to crack open enemy hulls. Amy transmitted their medical status again but received no response from the approaching warships. Lisa knew they were in serious danger. But she also knew they couldn't abandon the refugees who depended on them for survival.